Soybean Meal Futures. First off, read this disclaimer carefully and do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. So we go here to natural resources. And we have soybean meal here. We unfortunately do not have data from Refinitiv on soybean meal. We do, however, have data on soybeans, which are 46% here from the low, but they have been through 10-ish% pullback. So let's have a bit of a look here at this commodity. So there are time cycles when it comes to soybean meal, but they have really differed over time. But I think you can quite clearly see yourself that, it does certainly move in these, waves, which means that this is one of those buy low, sell high instruments. Okay, so what I found, especially interesting now, that is this red 200-week moving average, which potentially could be support, after this pullback. If you look here at the history of that moving average and price here, we do not have that clean interaction, nor here. Here we do sort of have a bit of a support. Here it is kind of resistance, kind of support, but it's not surgical. But we shouldn't expect that either with this commodity, because the commodity industry is different than other industries, because this is about real stuff, and it doesn't get more down to earth than these things that literally come up here from the earth. So yeah, that's the weekly data points. And when we look here at the indicators, we do see that the current RSI level is very low. It has a tendency to form the low. So here we have RSI data that go back to here on the weekly data points to the 2000s. So it is pretty clear that the bulls have a tendency to buy this level. When we look here at the distance from the 20-week moving average and also the 50-week moving average, we have been lower here over the last decades, but there is more often than not, we do see a rally at these kinds of lows. That's definitively interesting and supportive of a bullish thesis. Here we go to the daily data points. So then again, everything is in more nuance on the dailies. The thing is that you could certainly make the case that we have something that could be horizontal support here, 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 and to a certain extent here as well. And of course you do have this level. So potential horizontal support that is supportive of a bullish thesis. From a moving average perspective, we don't have much going on here. We are below, almost all moving averages on the daily data points. Looking here at the RSI, we are at a low level that has a tendency to attract buyers historically. Distance from the 20-day, 50-day, 100-day, and the 200-day moving average is at a very low level. So here we have these indicators go way back here to 2011. And sure, we have been lower here in the past, but when we especially here look at the distance from the 200-day and the 100-day moving average, we are at a pretty low level, which has a strong tendency, as you can see here, to result in us going above those moving averages. So not like a roaring bullish signal, but potentially bullish. When we look here at correlations, so now I have put the soybean futures here in this golden color. So long-term weekly data points, there's a 90% positive correlation. It is strong, but it's not like 100%. On the daily data points, we do have a 63% positive correlation between soybean meal and soybean futures. You see here, looking historically at the correlation, it usually is higher, significantly higher. So, I think that we could argue, quite strongly that there is usually is a strong correlation. So you could here go to the seasonality of soybeans and draw some conclusions about what potentially could happen to soybean meal. Over the last 5 years, September, October, November, and also December have been strong. The last 10 years, you see here that September on average produces a loss, but October is strong. Over the last 20 years, then it becomes very clear. So now it is really the big picture. September on average produces a loss, minus 2.3%. However, October is very strong, which means that it's in September that you could potentially have the best, well, at least a very good entry opportunity for a bullish position on soybean. Given that we are close to this support level, and also we are at a low on the RSI and some of these PPOs that more often than not attract bulls. And that it certainly pushes me in a more bullish direction. So yeah, I think that when we take the evidence together here, we have already seen a very substantial pullback in this commodity. We are at some support levels. It does tend to move in time cycles, but the cycles have differed. So I think that you could make a strong, well, at least a strongish bullish case here for soybean meal, especially when viewed in the context of seasonality. The only caveat here is that September usually isn't that strong. However, we are in a specific context where we have had a very substantial correction. So if I were a bear, and I'm looking for some shorting opportunities, and I look here at, the soybean meal chart, then I can clearly see that we have seen a very substantial pullback. When soybean meals go on a rally, it usually is very sharp. So this is definitively one of those situations where you do not want to be on the wrong side of the trade. It moves very sharply up and also sharply down. And after such, a protracted sharp move to the downside, I think that there's, it's time to be more contrarian and look for bullish opportunities.